before I get started today, I wanted to talk a little bit about the face thing. I think a lot about it. Like, it seems silly that an adult person would want to replace their face with a cartoon character. I have thought a lot about why it brings me pain, and the biggest two things are my eyes and my face. You'll notice that as I talk, my eyes will drift around a lot. Um, Over the years, it has been brought to my attention that is off-putting in regular conversation, and I do it because I have to get everything out of my mind. And so I have to find a blank spot, something where there's something predictable or normal going on. And usually that's not in somebody's eyes because I tend to be pretty empathic and I try and read the room probably more than I should. My eyes, I can see my own stuff that's going on. I'm the one that knows what's going on up there, and it's tough sometimes. I can feel like I'm in a good mood, and I can look at my eyes, and I'll be like, yeah, something's not right. So, still working on it, but I really like this format. I got to tell you, it's a bit more youthful representation of who I am, which I'm very comfortable with. I like that. That that being said, let's get into tonight's podcast. Uh, so rather than do kind of like another explainer on the CrowdStrike thing, I wanted to talk about the impact that we have on one another's lives. Specifically, one person on my life, their impact on my life. As a professional nerd, there have been numerous people along the way that have helped shape me into the engineer that I am today. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. I want to talk about one of the very best ones I ever had in my life, a man named Wayne Estrada. Sometime in the late 80s or early 90s, I was giving the old college thing a try, and I found some Unix classes offered at a local community college. And I only took one of these classes with Wayne. This was one semester of my life, and one semester of his life, really. But in that semester, man, I learned so much. And Wayne had such an impact on my life. I remember the night of the first class, I was quite a bit overwhelmed by the whole college thing. I mean, I didn't know anybody there, not a single person. And it's kind of jumping ahead a little bit. But growing up, I moved uh, 11 times in 8 years. I went to, I think I changed schools 8 different times between third grade and 11th grade. I was the new kid every year. I feel like I talked about this once. But it seemed like every year I was either like going from elementary to middle or middle to high, or I was at a new school where there was no continuity whatsoever. And towards the end, when I ended up at the high school where I graduated from, um, I started trying to kind of like figure out who I was a little bit, and that was the moment that particular move right there. That was the moment when computers really just entered my life in the hardest possible way. But I'm here to talk about Wayne. Let's focus on that. So I walk into this kind of generic looking computer lab and I take my seat. And, there's always that general milling about before class, murmuring and stuff going on. And then this honestly kind of unassuming looking guy walks in at the front of the door and front of the room, and he's dressed pretty sharp. He's got a nice press white suit on, and he's got a tie, and he takes his place at the lectern, and he looks at the class and he goes, Unix is a tool. And that's all he said, like for about 30 seconds. And, there was this kind of general murmur working its way through, like, hey, what's this guy? And then all of a sudden, at the top of his lungs, he goes, I said Unix is a tool. And he produces a 2x4 in one hand, a circular saw in the other hand, and he saws the board in half in front of the class, drops the saw on the table, throws the board on the floor, and then looks at us. And you know what, man? I was hooked. And then his response was, now that I've got your attention. And I honestly loved that moment. Wayne, that was brilliant. Okay, maybe I'm romanticizing some of the details, but the gist of it is 100% dead on. And in that moment, Wayne gained a lifelong fan. Every lesson he taught in that one semester class, every concept he helped everybody in that class understand, he brought this clarity of vision. He there was a conviction about the way he taught and the things he was talking about that really, really resonated with me. And during that, I was legitimately excited to go to school, probably for the first time since computer class in 11th grade, which I will talk about one day. Mr. Taylor and his impact on my life. Sadly, Mr. Taylor's no longer with us, but Jim Taylor was a god among men to me. He was, I can't tell you how much having good teachers like Mr. Taylor and Wayne are to anyone doing anything in life. I guess as kind of a show of appreciation, I kind of inadvertently ended up stalking Wayne a little bit. I remember seeing him out and about a couple of times, just, like having lunch or something, and I would stop by and say hey. And then about 5 years after I took my Unix class with him, a friend of mine was having a Unix class taught at a local hotel. And he said, he's telling me about how great the class is. And I said, man, unless you've got Wayne Estrada as your teacher, it's not a good class. And he looks at me and he's like, I know Wayne. He's our teacher. So in that moment, I decided I was going to go crash Wayne's class. And I would. So I get there and my buddy tells his classmates about me, and I kind of ad-lib through my usual Unix shtick. Unix is amazing for getting things done. It's my favorite operating environment, hands down. But it's not great for like applications, like the thing I'm using to record this, or the web browser that I've got my script in. Unix has always kind of lagged there. Yes, I know they've got things like KDE and GNU and stuff like that. It's just not the same. I mean, I love Unix, and I'm willing to admit that it's kind of second or third rate compared to a lot of other things out there. But there's a reason you don't see Unix hardware anywhere, really. Like, you don't go to, the local big box and there's a Unix computer. I'm not saying you can, it's rare though. But we're here to talk about Wayne. So, I thought about him this past weekend. I was talking to a buddy of mine about the CrowdStrike thing because I'm in IT and that's all anybody's talking about. And I looked Wayne up, and I typed a little note to him on LinkedIn to reconnect, and kind of hope for the best. Maybe he remembered me. Maybe he's like, those days they're in the rear view. I don't care. And he replied pretty quickly, and we connected. And so I reached back out to tell him a little bit about the impact that he had on my life. So Wayne, Mr. Estrada, this is for you, man. Having teachers like you in my life made all the difference. I was able to be myself in that class. I'm just this big, dumb nerd that likes to do things to get attention, especially when I'm learning something new. I remember Wayne had this trick, patented trick, where he would just throw an eraser at somebody that was, pissing him off. And I want to say I got most of the erasers that year. I wasn't trying to be a smartass. I hope I didn't come across that way. He used to, he would be teaching these concepts, and I would be so interested in things that I was following along with him while I was trying to read ahead and learn other things. And so one night, Wayne decides he's going to teach us about the wall command. If you haven't used Unix, terminal Unix, it's a little different on computers. It's still there, though. It's on my Mac right now. If I type wall and a message, every window that's open in terminal mode on my machine will get that message. And on old Unix systems, that's all it was just terminals connected to one, piece of hardware. So it worked really well. And so he's teaching us about this wall command, and being the impish person that I was, I had learned about ANSI characters and escape characters. So I sent a command through wall to every user on the system that cleared their screen and put a message up at the top of the screen. It was kind of dumb. Actually, it was very dumb. And so I would do unhelpful stuff like that, just because I was like, look at what I just did. And it's almost like being a kid, right? You're like, hey, look at this thing I just did. And, all anybody had to do was hit enter and everything went back to normal. But it took away from the class time. That was not a respectful student move on my part. And I remember after the class that night, Wayne gave me this look like, all right, that was cool, but don't ever do that again. And I got it. I was a kid. I was 18, 19 when all that happened. So I apologize if I was a turd, Wayne. I wasn't trying to be unhelpful. It was fascinating to me, and watching you do it was just, it was amazing to me. I want to wrap up tonight with a quote from the man himself, Mr. Wayne Estrada. Teachers are performers that receive applause years after the performance is over. So here's to you, Wayne. Thanks for everything and for putting up with my foolishness. Take care.